those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Welcome to episode 72 of the Wild Eye Podcast. This is an Eric Lamoureux only podcast with two nubs, host 1 and host 2. We're kind of like thing 1, thing 2. This is a podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment's Savage Worlds aimed at beginners and veterans alike. My name is Bob Helders, and I'm one of 3 co-hosts. 3? Isn't there going to be 4 of us pretty soon? I think
and it's me, John Johnson here. I just want to say I'm absolutely nobody. I've never done anything with my life, never achieved shit. And I just want to say a big shout out to the big goblin man, David Scott. How's it going, man? Hey, I remembered his name. Can you believe it?
Wow. Thing 2, how are you today?
I am good, thing 1.
Shots fired.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I like David Scott, man. He's one of my main guys. Actually, he's on that other show with those other guys, isn't he? What are their names?
Yeah, the homeless guy podcast. That podcast, man. I want to issue another apology. I know this is becoming actually a weekly occurrence at this point, but I want to make an apology because I shouted out the Savage Worlds GM podcast a couple of podcasts back. And I said that you should go and listen to it. I've actually never listened to an episode, and I did recently, and I want to say, don't bother. It's not very good. It's like 4 homeless guys broke into a goddamn house and started recording a podcast and talking about it. They don't know anything, and it's rubbish and boring. On with the show.
Wow, that's a little stiff out of the gate.
Oh, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Anyway, go on. What are we doing? What's going on?
What's happening? Our only named co-host ever, Eric Lamoureux.
Busy and trying to keep you guys in check. Can't wait for Paris to come back so can get some sense back into you guys.
When's he coming back? When's the man showing up? He'll have something intelligible to say.
Well, hopefully next show. I'm going to try to get him on the next show, but otherwise going to have to wait till April when they change they turn their clock, forward over there. So that way times will align. The stars will be aligned for Paris to come back. Sorry, co-host number 3.
Yeah, because in England we have daylight savings time, so that obviously the farmers can go out and till the fields and whatnot. But in Australia they change the time so they can have more knife and time, don't they?
Yeah, more knife and time.
Wow. Is there anybody that thing 2? Co-host 2 won't insult.
Gary, what's up with 50 Fathoms on Twitch? Our campaign, what happened? What's the future of this?
What do you mean? We're going to press play. We're going to press record on it this morning, and we're going to see what happens. The only problem
Gary,
last
come on,
week,
man. It was the worst. It was the worst Twitch stream known to humanity last week. Tell the listeners of the story about what happened, man.
Okay. So, without any previous prep or any thought into it, well, here's what really happened. It's one thing for me to broadcast to Twitch, but it's another entirely to bring you guys through my PC and output you to Twitch. So, during the first 30 minutes of the broadcast where we were playing the beginning of the 50 Fathoms campaign, and I was pumping the audio.
That was not advertised. That nobody knew where to find it.
Why would I advertise it? What do you think this is low rent. This is low budget, man. So that being
Gary's
said,
there like talking to listeners and watchers, but he never shared the link and nobody knew what was going on.
And nobody could hear him.
it's
For the first
recorded.
30 minutes, the audio wasn't even outputting.
It was recorded for prosperity. Eventually, it would end up on YouTube, where people would probably most likely watch it. So that's my defense for the whole thing. But then it was actually really funny because 30 minutes into it, I realized that nobody was coming through the channel. It was just me. So as I watched the video later on, it's so stupid because it's just me and I'm moving things around and I'm talking to somebody, but there's nobody responding. And then I'm just laughing because you guys said something fun or dumb. So it's just me laughing and moving.
You must have
around.
looked like a complete nutter, because it would have been like, so what do you do? And then you can hear figures moving around and then...
That's exactly what it sounded like. Oh my God, it was so funny. I watched a little bit of it anyways, and then I was just shaking my head. We'll see. We'll see if we get my audio things done. But yeah, what do I care if I advertise this or not? You guys want to come and check it out? People will find me. It's going to be like one of those little flowering dandelions that spring up in your grass. You know, your grass is green one day, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's just a tiny little flower there.
I
Right?
love the bit after the first half an hour when you realised that wasn't happening, and you were like, "So, for anyone that's tuning in, welcome to 50 Fathoms."
Oh, then I figured out the audio wasn't working, and I'm like, "All right, well, we're shutting this off." Boom, and I press the kill switch. Listen, you guys.
Man, it was so funny. And then eventually we just sat down and played. But this was the first time I'd ever seen Gary actually get frustrated at something. And that was the only not funny part, but goddamn, it was like watching somebody slowly boil over. If you've ever seen like the National Lampoon's Vacations movies, I thought Gary was going to start flipping and punching stuff, going crazy with a chainsaw, but right at the end you were like, I could see him boiling over. He was like, "Oh man, I've been testing this all week, and I don't know why it's not working," because none of it was working right. Nothing was working right. And then suddenly, I thought he was just going to flip. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the summer vacation one, when he punches that moose in the face.
Oh man!
What it reminded me of is like, let's say Gary works at McDonald's and everybody calls off that day, and he's got to run the kitchen by himself.
Yeah,
Stuff's on fire, and customers are unhappy, which was me taunting Gary through this whole process because
nobody was being nice to him either. Everyone was winding him up. And like throughout the whole thing, people were like, "Oh yeah, virtual tabletop's the best one, eh, Gary?"
I hate you guys so much. You know, it's the weirdest thing because you're exactly right. It's like we've been doing prep at the restaurant for months, and then on opening day, nobody shows up, and the place burns itself to the ground. I tested Twitch. I tested the audio. I played and built all of the maps inside of Tabletop Simulator. It's not like it takes a gigantically long time, but you know, you keep going back and you're tweaking and you're adding in things and you're doing this and you're that, and you never have a problem. And then all of a sudden, you guys show up to the table, and One World glitches out. TTS itself didn't actually screw up, but the scripting for the One World program, which is the map changing program, it went sideways, and then it would stop loading things, and then I had to reset the table. And it's like we're 5-10 minutes into the adventure, and all of a sudden I have to start over, and it was freaking atrocious. And then 30 minutes later,
one highlight was when there was a bit where you're like, "Yeah, my guy attacks Harrison. Where the hell is Harrison?" And I'm like, for some reason, I'm on the other end of the table and I can't move my mini, and also it's red.
Yeah.
I think somebody picked your miniature up and put it on the auto or the color outlining token and changed the color of it. I was being sabotaged, I swear.
Oh man, it was weird.
All right, moving on. What's going on with your?
So kudos to all the people that stream, the streamers on Twitch. I mean, it's not easy. So if you're doing a good job at it, maybe send Gary an email to help him out.
I don't need any help. How dare you? Listen, you scumbags get this program for free. It's not like the Wild Eye where we actually have a Patreon, so we put time and effort into making sure that the show is not only humorous, but informative and entertaining. See, I do this for free. So if it turns into a flaming ball of turd, just be thankful that you got a free flaming ball of turd out of the deal.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, recording, by the way.
Anyway, moving on. Recently, I played a game of Low-Life on Savage Worlds Deluxe. But anyway, we reviewed this game ages ago on the podcast, and I finally bloody got the chance to play it because we've been playing some Gen Lab Alpha, which is a non-Savage Worlds game in our group. And Nick, who's GMing at the moment, was on holiday, so I said to the guys, "Let's play some Low-Life." I got all the stuff, I've got the cards for the NPCs and the PCs and stuff, and I've got adventure deck. I've got all this stuff. So we ran an adventure called A Hello to Arms, right? And for those that don't know, Low-Life is a post-apocalyptic setting where it's believed that every single type of apocalypse that possibly could have happened. And the things that are left are all the things that could have survived an apocalypse. For example, you've got people that are Twinkie people. You've got things that are marshmallows with arms and legs. You've got Bodles, which are the closest thing to a mutated human. You've got corns. You've got people that are corn people. You've got all sorts of stuff. And we played a gangster game. So these guys are like these people they're gangsters, and their boss is a guy called Baz Razmataz, and they've got to do a museum heist to go and get these two arms for him. And they're made out of cheese, and the Baz Razmataz is a guy with no limbs, and I changed the adventure slightly. So this guy, the reason he's so feared is because he's he's kind of a mage, and he's so magical. So he's got no arms or legs, but he could really, really goof you up. And these guys are debt collectors working for him. And in this game, it was really, really awesome. Just to give a couple of highlights as to what happened. They started off trying to debt collect from this bloke and really messed up his library, tied him to a ladder, beat the hell out of him, realized he had no clams, which is the currency. And then they moved on. They beat him up, and this guy was a Weisenheimer, which is like a smart dude. So he knew about this exhibition where the cheese arms were being held. So then the herd, I think it's called a herd, can't remember what they're called, Heap, that's it, which is the name for the party in this game, moved on to the museum and went to go and do this heist. And the museum is like this big labyrinth, like maze-like structure. And suddenly, like, one of the smart guys starts making his way through the labyrinth, trying to find his way to the 5th floor. He spies a painting that is literally just a smear of turd on the wall. And people are admiring it like it's a painting, but it's not. It's actually just somebody's pooped on the wall. And he's trying to make his way to the 5th floor and trying to get through the maze. Meanwhile, the other two players are on the roof fighting the guards, and it was epic. We kept on cutting between the two. One of them's running through the hallway, steals a guard's uniform. Meanwhile, on the top, the two guys are fighting all of these guards, chucking them off the roof into bins. It was awesome. And that was basically the short and tall of the adventure. It ends with them having to fight this big monster type thing called an odor in the actual chamber where the arms are kept. But yeah, that's essentially the adventure. It's quite a simple, nice adventure, but we had a dramatic task with them trying to break the locks before the guards came back. It was really, really good. And playing gangsters in that type of setting really works because it's in one of the most populated cities in the setting, and it's fantastic. But one of the cool things I really liked is the characters in the game start off with a lot of abilities because you get racial abilities based on which race you pick. And so one of the guys was a hawk, which is basically a big snot dude, and he could hold 2 yachts worth of stuff in his gullet and then just regurgitate it at will. And one of the guys was a UFO called an UFO, an alien, and he can touch people to heal them. And he gets that ability 3 times a day and can heal 2 wounds a day. So everyone had these cool abilities that they could use. And it really came into play throughout the game. So yeah, fantastic.
Nice.
So that's Low-Life. Yeah, great game. Had a blast with it.
It's funny because with your English accent, you said one of the guys was a hawk, but what in English, like, it's hork. Like, he's like, you hork up a phlegm ball or something like that, but when you say it, it sounds like he was a hawk. He was a bird flying around.
It doesn't sound right. Yeah, I know. So it's, hawk.
Was he an eagle?
No, he was not. He was a snot bloke. So it should be... Yeah, it would still be hawk, but it sounds exactly the same. Yeah, there was it was very, very fun, and the misadventure deck that is a product for Low Life is kind of cool because it's actually designed very, very well in that it's kind of more low powered than other adventure decks that you can get, but it has a different set of rules in that you can use a Benny anytime you want throughout the game to get and be able to spend another misadventure card. So yeah, they're a little bit more low powered, but they kept on buying new ones and using new ones, and there can be. I'm trying to remember some of the ones that we used, but one of the main ones that was used was the guy that was the Hork. He had one where he suddenly started stinking real bad, and anyone around him got a -2 to all actions until he took a bath. And that lasted for the rest of the game because he didn't manage to take another bath. So everyone was keeping a massive distance from him. And there was a part where they were having a fight with two cards, and they tried to pass the whole thing off as an artistic performance, and the whole people were like were applauding them. And I believe that somebody played a card to make everyone believe that better. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it was really, really good. I love that deck, and it really complemented the game really well because it was designed specifically for it. And it just felt like I liked the low power of it because it didn't break the game, as it were. There were no overpowered ones. There's only one card in there I didn't like, and it was that you may cheat until somebody catches you. You can fudge rolls, you can take cards from the deck, whatever you like, and I took that one out.
Well, it's interesting because usually in adventure cards you get those that give bonuses to damage or to rolls, and then you have the plot twist ones that really can change the game, or it's like an I win button basically. But that one is more like a sudden hindrance type of thing, so it's cool.
Yeah, there are a couple in there that are slight plot twist ones, but there's nothing major in there. They're all small, and that's why I think you can spend a Betty to get ones. So we got a message somehow from Jan Jetmar. I don't know if this is by email, by Hawk, or whatever. But anyway, she says
Facebook.
She or he says sorry. Why are you laughing, Eric? Sorry, it's just you said he. So that isn't funny at all. Right, he says, firstly, I would like to say I love your show. Not because you're deeply knowledgeable. Fuck, what the hell? F*** you.
Wow.
Mainly because it is a great and funny show, and it is clear that you all greatly enjoy the topic, meaning Savage Worlds, if any M person reads this. Secondly, the way Harrison Hunt makes apologies is truly exceptional. Thirdly, while you are making Suede characters, you seem to do it in a sort of Savage Worlds deluxe way. This shows mainly in the description and choices made for John Wick. You try to come up with all kinds of gun-fu related characteristics for situations when the subject pushes away an opponent in order to shoot him, when it could be described that he is just doing fighting tests to make the foe vulnerable and possibly shake him as well. This way, there is a perfect valid core Suede explanation for his close combat abilities. Very, very good point, Jan. He definitely should have the following edges: feint to make sure he targets the lesser trait, killer instinct to at least make him vulnerable, plus who else should have this edge, and strong-willed when the other guy tries non-physical tests of his own. Fourthly, keep up the good work. I'm sorry I said what I said earlier, Jan. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah,
we'll try to be more knowledgeable.
No, we won't.
Speak for yourself, Eric. I won't.
Yeah, thing 1 and thing 2 are going to be dumb as ever. That's why we get no. Maybe that's the reason we get no recognition. And I think he even said there, yeah, the guy that made John Wick. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for the email, Jan. That makes a lot of sense, and it appears that he knows Savage Worlds. What's the new one called? Adventure Edition. That's what it's called. A lot better than we do. Right. So
yeah, maybe Jan should start his own show and be more knowledgeable.
I think
maybe he should just replace us on here.
At least you, and at least Jan knows what the well, maybe he doesn't. He doesn't say what it is there, but maybe he does know it's called the Adventure Edition. Look,
I had a brain fart momentarily. Okay.
This is so bad. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Jan. Good points.
I'd say
God, I hate myself. I literally hate myself so much right now.
I'd say thanks, but I don't know if that was a kick in the balls or just some general advice. I don't know if he was like, "Hey, thing two, you're an idiot," or "Nice attempt there, thing two, mental case."
All right, let's move on to the news, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the news. The news is incoming. Prepare yourself for the news. News! And some announcements about the Nerds International Network and the Wild Die podcast.
Okay, so important Savage Worlds news, right? Legion of Liberty. Eric, give us the lowdown. Give us the skinny.
Yeah, the superheroes of 1776 on Kickstarter right now from Happy Monster Press. And yeah, they said this about it. We're happy to announce that the Legion of Liberty superheroes of 1776 Kickstarter is now live. Play as superhumans fighting for American independence against the elite British superhuman regiment, the notorious Greycoats. You can preview the setting right now on Drive-Thru RPG, the Jumpstart. And it's fully compatible with the new Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. If you like our settings and want to see Legion of Liberty come to life with awesome custom art, please spread the word. Thanks. So what I like about this is the tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You can play characters like the Boston Lobster Man. I mean, that sounds like fun. You see on one of the pictures, you've got some patriots or something, and in the background, there's like a superhero flying through the sky. Yeah, I want to see these guys succeed, Scott and Joy, because I believe they're good writers. We've reviewed Children of the Apocalypse on this show before, and the writing was really good. Unfortunately, they didn't have the funds to work on the presentation a little bit, so I want to see what they can do with, money in their pockets for good artists. So go check it out. It sounds like a lot of fun. One interesting thing, too, is that it doesn't use a superpowers companion, so you don't need to buy 2 books to play this game. You just need the Adventure Edition and this one, and the powers are all handled that way. So entry level is lower that way.
Sold.
Yeah,
I'm in.
We'll have a link in the show notes. They're almost funded right now. They're about 4 days in, I think, and they're at 95% of their $3,000 goal. So just a little bit of push there and funded.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, well, thanks for that.
What edition was that for, Harrison?
Explorers Edition.
Wow.
So another bit of news. They've recently released some action cards, haven't they? No, adventure cards for Savage Worlds Explorers Adventure Edition, and they've got some brand new artwork. Can you believe it?
Right, adventure cards that were supposedly gonna have new artwork, and I see some old ones in there. I don't know. I'm puzzled, but yeah, they've got the adventure cards. They've got the tokens, power cards, action decks, all in digital, of course. So if you play on a VTT, you can use those. If you don't, then you can just hate them because they're useless.
Somebody being a bit passive aggressive there, Eric.
Just a touch. Yeah, why don't you tell us how you really feel about that the adventure artwork card stuff there, Eric? Huh? No? All right.
I just pointed out that it was still old artwork. That's all.
It's a shame. It is a shame because I was looking forward to some new pretty ones. I like the layout on them, but it's a shame that they're using the old artwork because I think some of it is actually a little bit dated. But oh well, whatever.
Not a fan of the power cards. I just want to say, nah, they're kind of bland, kind of plain looking, with that ripped paper look on top. I think what would have been neat, they're kind of going for that old sort of. 70s style detective ring bound flip note kind of a sort of a deal there, but I just don't like the way that they turned out. The power card or the power deck face is pretty nice looking, but the rest of it is just kind of like meh. The adventure cards are really nice. It didn't actually catch that the artwork was the same until Eric mentioned it, because I mostly I only really ever GM. It's very rare that I get to play, so I didn't notice that the artwork was the same. And then I started looking at it, and it's like there's so many cards where it's the identical artwork. Like Epiphany is one of them. Not Today is another one. There's like 7 or 8. And there's like 7 or 8 cards where it's the same artwork as the old one. And it's like, that was your $5,000 spread between editions between, what do you call it? Like the extras that you get.
Goals, stretch goal.
That's a $5,000 stretch goal to get 2 adventure cards. And they just used the same artwork. And I'm like, okay, now that you mention it, the cards look fantastic though. I like this look is really nice. And then
I like the actual layout of them, but it's just I just think it's a little bit of a shame when it's a stretch goal. You want something like completely new and shiny. I guess that's the only trouble, considering how fantastic the book looks. It's like a complete new update. You know what I mean? It's got bloody Terry Crews in there, for Christ's sake. You know, it's amazing. And then you get the cards, and it's just like, I just think it's a bit of it's not like a massive setback, but it's just a little bit of a shame. But you know, obviously we're all going to use them, but it's just like a bit of a shame. That's all.
Yeah, and then
they also had bookmarks. You can calculate the distance with the bookmarks, and they got like cheat sheets on them too, which it could be interesting.
I just want to say one thing, right? A little while ago, a little someone by the name of Thing 1 or Thing 2, I can't remember which one I am, complained about the bookmarks that they had advertising on them, right? And look, now they've made bookmarks that actually have useful stuff on them. Uh-oh. I'm not saying I made them change the bookmarks. I'm not saying Pinnacle have been listening to me, but that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, that's how influential you are in the community.
I believe that I'm owed some sort of consultancy fee.
Well,
hit me up, Shane. Hit me up.
I don't think you're owed anything after you made them cry for what you said about the last bookmarks that they got. But
yeah, but those. Look, anyway, hit me up, Shane. Send me that money.
Sweet. So, lastly, the action deck. Eric, you pumped out an action deck yourself not too long ago. The Mutants was the first one you did, and then did you guys not? You did the Fantasy one. The Fantasy one's my favorite one, and I wish Wade would.
Pirates.
What's that?
And the Pirate one. I did a Pirate one too. It's awesome. You should get 5.
Never mind that piece of junk. But on the Fantasy one is really nice, and what I like about it is when you're using it and playing with it in person, it has like a solitary, massive display of what the card is. And I really like that. I wish Swade would have updated this, because this just looks like a standard deck where you have the ace to jack has art on it, and the rest are just, they're just your like standard everyday deck. It would have been nice if they would have just switched that style up a little bit to not make it look like it's just every other every other deck of cards when you're flipping it over, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Well, I haven't looked at them, but they do have an oversized one, though. Probably for jumbo cards that we're going to get in that box.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I was checking it out yesterday. I imported all of this stuff into TTS, so.
I've got an oversized.
I wonder how you do. How easy are they to shuffle? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, it'll be easy for Gary. He's got gigantic hands.
I need the big cards to shuffle with my massive hands. Is that what you're saying? Go along with my massive pillow for my massive head?
All right, moving on, guys. Let's take it to the edge.
Listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
All right, so if we're take it to the edge, well, last episode we made characters. and I received good feedback about this, so I figured let's make villains this time. Let's make the bad guys, the NPCs, the wildcard NPCs, and that's what we're gonna do. I think Harrison was gonna start that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I am. And the thing is about obviously, as people know, with making villains or NPCs or things like this, you don't really need to stick to the character creation rules. You can, if you want to be completely fair, but screw fair. You know, an NPC doesn't need to really stick to like the point buy system or anything like this. And so you can go wild. You can go buck wild with this stuff. And we wanted to kind of make famous villains that people are going to know. I haven't done that, so I apologize. But I've made Robert Lichford. Now, this is something that people might know because he was the primary villain from a series of actual plays we did on this podcast called Kings of Convenience. And for those that don't know, don't worry, because I am going to explain the backstory to him. But essentially, in this actual play, it followed a bunch of convenience stores workers who got flung into different realities by a lich who realistically only had a couple of powers. And one of those was that he could use the teleport spell to teleport foes into other realities. And those realities were almost always based on some kind of media that he had available at the time. So, for example, the first one they went into was Alice in Wonderland because he had the Disney version on a TV at the time, and then they all got flung into it. Now, the thing about him is he's a lich. He's obviously a lich, and they just one day working in a convenience store. Robert Lichford comes in. He tries to sell them a TV, and when they refuse, they get flung into Wonderland. That was essentially how it went. He's a very childish bloke. He's also not that powerful. So how did I build this character? Well, first of all, I'll start off with the backstory I wrote on the character sheet. And this character sheet is going to be available to download for all of you guys. We'll include a link in the description. I've made it look cool and nice. Put a little meme skeleton in there. So the backstory I've written on the sheet is, after being bullied incessantly, Robert dropped out of Lich School at a young age, a fact which disappointed his parents greatly. Whilst there, he only learned a tiny, tiny portion of the spells available to a lich. He does, however, know the teleport spell. The trouble is, he can only teleport to other realities and can't figure out how to get home. So, bitter and bloody annoyed, Lichford spends his time getting back at the universe that dealt him a bad hand, mainly by terrorizing people in realities other than his own. And I went real simple with this one because what I did is I took the Lich from Adventure Edition, Explorers Edition. And I'm going to stop making that joke, but I took the Lich from Adventurers Edition and I just altered the stats as I went along because he's a weaker Lich. He dropped out of Lich School and I just basically altered the stats. So all I did is I just went along and altered them as I saw fit. So a big thing about this series was that essentially they were chasing him through the realities. So he wasn't exceptionally fast, but he was fast. So he's got a D6 in agility, which is normal, but I've given him a couple of an edge to sort of compensate for that. So he's got a D10 in smarts because he's a lich, so he's still smart despite dropping out of school. And he's got a D8 spirit, D8 strength, and D8 vigor because, he still is an undead bloke. With skills, I gave him a D8 in athletics to represent his goodness at running away. He's got a D6 in common knowledge because he dropped out of school. D8 in fighting, D10 intimidation, D10 notice, D8 in occult, and D8 persuasion, and D10 spellcasting. Now, the persuasion represents that he was always getting people to kind of do stuff for him. There was a part in the series where he was singing karaoke on a bar, and everyone was crowded around him, and everyone was loving it. You were going to say something, Gary.
Should that be performance?
You know what? It probably should have been. I should have included that on there. So I might change that before I do that. I was probably thinking too much in terms of deluxe there. So I'm going to add performance in there, and I'm going to redo the sheet. But anyway, I'll add performance in there as well because he was a good singer. That actually was part of his character. In addition to this, in terms of gear, because he's quite childish, I've given him jelly beans, a CRT TV, a VHS player, and a copy of Disney's Alice in Wonderland. For hindrances, he's got stubborn because he refused outright throughout most of the campaign to ever do anything that the players wanted at any point, and just ran away from them most of the time. He's got bad luck. He was dealt a bad hand throughout most of his life, and he's got driven, but it's only minor because he doesn't really know what he wants. He either wants to get home or he wants to find himself a good life in one of the realities he finds himself in. As for edges, I gave him an arcane background. I pretty much just made one up. But the thing is, I just gave him 1 year of Lich School, and it was just 20 power points and 2 spells. And I gave him Free Runner. So this is essentially one from the book. So, it's just essentially, I think what it is you get a +2 on athletics checks for running away and for doing an athletic feats kind of thing. Alertness. And it's that Robert has made a lot of enemies while he's been out there, and he's always on guard. So that's his kind of thing, because he's going from reality to reality, messing with people, and he's always having to look behind his back, So he's got +2 on notice checks. And I gave him arcane resistance as well, because naturally, he's a lich. Now, as for his spells, he's got 2. The first one is the one from the series, Dimensional Media Phase. So as long as he's got a piece of media, he can phase into any other realm, but only if he holds a piece of media depicting that realm. For example, a painting, a book, a play, a script, or a video game. And it's just the teleport spell. That's it. But I altered it ever so slightly. Now, he may also cast the ability to transport any foe using the teleport foe modifier to any previously visited location, but the price will be their everlasting soul. Now, this was because something happened during the show where he did teleport Eric back to a previous location using this power, but Eric's character lost his soul. So that's basically how that works. And as a last,
so yeah, I didn't pick up on that when we played that he actually needed a piece of media from the place we were going to. I guess I overlooked that. So it's like a condition to the teleportation.
That was what it was, yeah. So at first he had Alice in Wonderland, then he had the song from Fallout, then he had that crappy game that all of the raiders were playing, and he jumped into their D&D game, and that was every time you jumped into a different universe, it was always something depicting that universe, and that was what it was. So yeah. And now the other spell I gave him, just so that he had something, another spell, was Evil Red Bad Bolt, and that's just Bolt, and that's it. He's also got 2 special abilities. These are ripped basically straight from the book. So he's got Undead and Death Touch. So with a successful touch attack, you can, if he gets a raise, he can inflict 1 wound on a target automatically. And
did you say Undead? The Undead special ability? Monstrous ability? Did you?
Yeah, so that is +2 toughness and +2 to recover from being shaken, and no additional damage from cooled shots. Ignores 1 point of wound penalties. He doesn't breathe. He's immune to disease and poison.
Yeah, that makes sense. That time that there was a car crash and he just walked away and got on his bike while Gary's character almost died.
Yep, that was basically it, because obviously I rolled damage separately for everyone, but he had a much higher toughness. If I tried to actually find the previous one that I made and convert him over, but I couldn't find it. But if I'm being honest, the previous version of him was actually a bit tougher, but I just remade this one from scratch, and I made him a little bit weaker because I wanted to make it more of a comedy villain, I should say. And so yeah, this one is it's a little bit weaker, honestly, but yeah. So yeah, he's got the Undead special ability, and yeah, that gives him a +2 to toughness. So even without any armor or anything like that, he's already got an 8, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, with that minus from cooled shots, even when people shoot him in the head, it's not gonna do anything to him. So pretty awesome.
So you mentioned you mentioned that he's a bit. Well, you made him a bit weaker, but do you remember the old version enough to be able to compare how close to the concept each version was. You know what I mean? Like, what did it feel better with deluxe, or it feels more right with Adventure Edition?
If I'm being honest, this one is closer to how I actually played him in the series. This one is actually more faithful to how I actually played him, because what the original didn't really have any hindrances written down. I essentially just with the first one just took the lich straight out of the book and just scrapped a couple of abilities, and where it said that he can use any spell from the book in the original one, I just basically didn't stick to that, and that was essentially it, and still gave him the same stats, which didn't really make a lot of sense because he wasn't that powerful and he was quite bumbling, you know. The thing is, this is way closer to what he's actually like. And so if anyone's listened to that series, or if anyone's a fan, or if anyone indeed wants like a bumbling monster that's not good at his job, to sort of have in your campaign, then this is quite a good one. Like, if you just want a one shot, even if you're doing a serious fantasy campaign and want a one shot where just a really stupid villain turns up for one session, you can have this. And he's a guy that loves to mess with people, then try to run away, and it can be a good laugh. I mean, we had 3 episodes based on that.
He was frustrating as a villain. Like, we could never catch up to him until the end, of course, and then he was done with in a couple rounds. But yeah.
Well, there was because you eventually cornered him, and I think the funny bit was, as you say, when you guys got in a car with him and let him drive, and then he just obviously just crashed the car into the side of a mountain, got out, and then he had a bike in the boot and just rode it off. And then I think one of you was on -3 wounds, did a cool shot to the wheel of the bike, obviously missed entirely, and he's just like, "See you later." Rides the bike off into the desert.
That guy was fun. That was a fun campaign. Eric, didn't you end up as a bench?
Yeah. My first character got sent back to the modern time and lost his soul because he sacrificed his soul to save your character's life. So I had to make another character, and I wanted to make a bit more fun character, because at first Harrison just said, just make a normal guy that works at a convenience store, and that wasn't really interesting to me when I played him. And then I found out what that campaign was about what, two episodes in, and then decided to make a flying bench, thinking it would fit better with the campaign, and that was more fun from that point on. So yeah, I don't only play human rogues with short swords.
Yeah, because you played a bench. Well, yeah, because we're part of the way through. Because obviously it was like the very last episode was a fictional world made by a fictional person. So it was, it got really weird towards the end. So yeah, that was weird. And you were in a village populated entirely by wild cards. But yeah, so that's Robert Lichford. If you want a weird, stupid villain, then by all means put him in. And if you haven't heard of him, go and listen to the Kings of Convenience, and you might enjoy that little actual play series. He's a very strange villain. I don't know why I made him, but yeah, he's a fun villain. But the reason I wanted to sort of use this guy and not maybe a more famous one was because I wanted to demonstrate how you can take. If you need a villain and you need one quickly and you can't be bothered to make one, you can take a powerful monster from Adventure Edition and just alter the stats ever so slightly. And I've obviously stuck to what the monster originally was, but even if I just took off the undead abilities, then I could have a pretty powerful wizard here. Just trap it as something else and say, hey, it's not a lich anymore, it's just a powerful wizard. Then you could do that. But that's what I wanted to demonstrate there. So, there you go. Robert Lichford, everyone.
Very cool. Insert applause here.
Thank you, Gary.
I really like that character. That was a fun game. That whole Alice in Wonderland thing was a full-on hoot. I especially liked pressing my butt cheeks into Eric's character's face as I sat on him.
Yeah. You want to sit on my face? Yeah, that was my line there.
It's still creepy. It's still creepy.
Right, who's next, man? Gary, I want to
Me,
hear from you.
I don't know if I can go next, man. My confidence has been shaken by Jan Jetmar or Jan Jetmar, by him or her. Oh, that said, all right, here we go. So, I did Agent Smith from The Matrix. I sat down yesterday about 12 o'clock, and I kicked in the old Netflix, and I busted out The Matrix, and I gotta say that movie still holds up. I'm actually really glad that I watched it yesterday. I mean, it's still, here we are almost 20 years later, and it's just as good as it was the first time. But maybe that 20-year gap in between. I did mine through the bestiary. Like, I started in the bestiary section. That's why I got a hold of you, Eric, and asked if we were making actual like PC playable characters or if we were just doing NPCs. But once we got to the NPC part, I shot back to the bestiary and started there because it's a section that I haven't touched yet in this book, which is the nice part about learning the Adventure Edition. And there's one paragraph that's in the bestiary for making characters, and it says that non-player characters and monsters should have any edges or hindrances the GM feels appropriate. I like that, but I find that well, we'll get into that after I describe my character. It says they are also not created like player characters. And then here's another piece that I have a bit of a touch of a problem with. It says they should generally have the prerequisites of any edge for completeness. And then otherwise, give them the abilities that you want them to have and spend your time and energy on the plot of the game or how best to entertain your group. And that's the entire concept for making, like, monsters inside of Savage Worlds, which is super appealing to me from a guy coming from D&D for so long. Because, man, there's a lot of stats in that game and, like, individual... Wow. Anyways, my concept, Agent Smith. Agent Smith is a computer AI program that can inhabit the simulated body of any human inside the Matrix. He was present at the beginning of the simulated reality. He's like fully knowledgeable about how the entire concept came to be. And he thinks that humans are a virus. In fact, there's a scene where he compares humans and the way that they act, how they spread and basically use up all of the resources in that area and then just move on. And his primary goal inside the Matrix is to maintain order. And he destroys basically any rogue operators or rewrites any old code. Although I read that part on the internet when I was looking up some stuff on him. So you don't really get the idea that that's what his job is. His job primarily is to maintain order. He's like the black ops, so to speak, because there's regular police and stuff, right? So his race, obviously he's human, although not human. He takes the form of humanoids inside the Matrix, and in the Matrix, it does mention that he still generally has to stick to the properties, or I should say the physics of the world that he's in, and which would be, he basically has to stick to the gravity affects him a certain way. Even though he can bend that kind of stuff, he still is sort of held in place by it. And that's really all you had to put down for that. I mean, his race really is almost irrelevant because he's not human. He's just a program that just sort of takes the form of this stuff. Anyways, hindrances. I gave him arrogant. He doesn't think he's the best. He knows he's the best. You kind of get the feeling from him right from the get-go. I don't know if it's because he has no personality, because he is a computer guy, but and that's sort of what arrogant feels like to me. Like he knows he's got all of these skills and abilities, and he's the best at what he does, and he knows everything, kind of a thing. So I gave him that edge, not so much because I feel that edge affects him, but that's the way that his character is portrayed, if that makes sense. That hindrance doesn't really have anything other than that. And I gave him driven because he is an AI program. His code is his mission. And one of the interesting things that I found out is it says that driven is a vow or a commitment to others. Driven characters want something for themselves, which he does, because in the movie, the premise, there's one scene when he has, I just instantly had a brain fart with the
Whatchamacallit?
Right?
Adventure Edition.
Exactly. Anyways, he has the leader guy, not Neo, but What's the guy's name? Morpheus. Thank you. He has Morpheus in that upper room of that tower, and he's talking to him, telling him all of this stuff. And he mentions to him about, you see Morpheus sweating away, and Agent Smith takes his hand and he's like sort of smears the sweat off of his head, and he tells him this story about how he's been doing this for so long that he just wants out, and he's trying to get the codes for the mainframe. And once he gets the codes, he'll be able to destroy the rest of the humans, and then there'll be no more need for him, and he'll sort of be released. It doesn't really say what's going to happen to him, but that's his premise. He thinks that he can't handle the smell or the stench that the humans give off, and so that's why he is so driven to do what he's doing. And then lastly, I gave him Ruthless. Now, they don't really go into it inside the show, but he has no issues like taking the life of another human or killing people or doing any of that kind of stuff. And they say that if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life. So every time he takes over a human body and then that body is killed, that person dies inside of real life. So I gave him Ruthless. Speeding this process up, attributes. This was super easy, man. Attributes, he has a D12 across the board. He doesn't actually pertain or have to pertain or stick to the rules of a human's body. He's got like he's super fast. He doesn't even really need to breathe, right? Like that's what makes him so scary inside the Matrix and why they all flee. The rest of their programming, when they're inside the Matrix, they have to act like humans. But this guy, because he's not a human outside of the Matrix, he doesn't have to act like one inside the Matrix. So I gave him D12s across the board for his attributes. However, when it comes to his skills, watching the movie, there is a definite difference in skill levels for the things that he does. Now, he's got a D12 in athletics because he's not affected by stamina. He can move super quick. He's sort of like outside the confines of the physics in that aspect. I gave him a D12 in common knowledge because he knows everything about the Matrix. Like he can literally see where people are or through other people's eyes and then, take over their bodies and stuff like that. Like he knows what's going on inside of the Matrix. I gave him a D8 in notice because there's plenty of scenes where they get away because they're hiding. There's one scene where they're in the walls and like one of the police officers hears one of the guys coughing inside the wall, and that's how that whole thing. But yeah, there's plenty of scenes where their location really isn't known. A D4 in persuasion because there's nothing in the movie that indicates that he's ever trying to persuade people. In fact, he's trying to persuade or at least intimidate one of the two, Morpheus, to give him the codes to the mainframe, and that is completely unsuccessful even with the chemical that he injects into him. I gave him a D4 in stealth because he doesn't ever hide. He doesn't need to. He just, kicks ass and takes names. D12 in fighting. He's almost undefeated, and they mentioned of it several times. All you can do is run away because he's it. Like he works outside of the realms in the sense of fighting. And then a D6 in shooting. He sucks, man. Like they would all be dead if that's how you kill people, but they miss all the time, like a gazillion times. It's just bullets everywhere, flying all over the place, and nobody ever hits anybody, obviously, or they would die. D12 in intimidation for tests and stuff like that. He strikes fear inside the Matrix. Just the mere thought of him showing up freaks people out. In Trinity, which is the female that starts off at the show, she's the riding the motorcycle and whatnot, but she's the first one you see in the show. There's a scene where the agents show up and she dives across this 4-lane sort of Superman deal into a window and goes rolling down some stairs, and you see her at the bottom of the stairs with her guns pointed at the window, and she's trying to talk herself into getting up. She's like, get up, get moving. And so that's why I up their intimidation for fear tests or fear checks and stuff like that, because this, just the thought of these guys there, you're done. You have to run. You can't beat them. D12 in research, D12 in writing. Again, he's code. He can literally, there's a scene where they go to hop in a helicopter and she like immediately gets downloaded the information on how to do it. And I don't know why I put D12 in science, but I didn't write the note in for this one, which is really weird.
Did you put in hacking?
I think that's maybe, I didn't put in hacking because he doesn't hack the system. He is the system, if that makes sense, right? Maybe that's why I gave him the D12 in science. I'm not 100% sure. Edges, alertness, ambidexterity, fleet-footed, block, improved block. A lot of the edges that I gave him, brawler, bruiser, combat, I'm just going to skim through them. Counterattack, improved counterattack, dodge, improved dodge. Free runner, which gives him, I thought that was a neat one, parkour or whatever that stuff is called. Frenzy, hard kill, improved iron jaw because he takes a beating. Level-headed, he's an emotionless AI. Martial artist, martial warrior, mighty blow, nerves of steel, improved nerves of steel, no mercy, and rock and roll. So I'm just going to quickly speed through those. But you'll notice that I didn't give him any shooting skills. And it's like throughout the entire movie, he shoots a lot. That's a lot of what they do is shooting. But he never really seems to hit. You know what I mean? He's always just missing Neo. I don't know if that's Neo's fantastic parry.
It's funny that you should say that, because it kind of strikes me that that's a bit of an oversight on the part of the movie. I never really thought about that.
Yeah,
it's not a terrible movie. Like, it's not my cup of tea. But the thing is that I always thought, thinking about it now, he should just be able to shoot him.
Yeah, he should be able to have the code to know exactly how to coordinate his arm to shoot him every time. It
should just move like a robot and just hone in and go boop.
Mm-hmm. So you'll notice that
but then I suppose the way that you could think about it is that the bullet, once it's left the gun, that's it. That's not part of him anymore, right? So then Neo is able to move like super fast, dodge it, like the bullet time thing. So I guess that's the only way I can think about it, that it makes sense. But anyway, sorry, moving on.
Yeah, you start talking yourself into circles when you start thinking about this kind of stuff. But you'll notice that everything that I gave him is all about speed and melee attacks and defending and stuff like that. The Iron Jaw one, especially the +2 to soak and vigor, he takes a beating. He gets hit with so many things, and it doesn't really affect him. The only way to take them out is essentially, there's the one scene where they initially fight one of the agents, and Neo's just about to get done in when Trinity walks up and she's like, dodge this, but she's got the bullet right to his head. She squeezes the trigger and he's done. And so they're killable, but even though they can immediately respawn. But so for special abilities, I gave him fearless, because he instills Trinity. I already talked about that with the panic and stuff and always running away. Fearless, an AI program. They don't have emotions. Hardy, which says that they need a decisive blow to be put down. Like you literally have to sort of shoot them in the head to take them out. Invulnerable, and what I wrote for notes is I would say stack and track wounds, but ignore them. I'll get into detail when I do my conclusion here. Low light vision. They don't even actually really have vision. They sort of see like Neo does with the Matrix and stuff like that. Is the impression that I get. They're not affected by light and stuff. His stats. He's got a pace of 8, parry of 8, toughness of 8. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And then for gear, suit, glasses, and a gun. Now, this is where you guys might find this actually interesting, because this character, this was interesting and it was fun, and I would recommend to listeners to do this exercise to learn about making NPCs. In Suede, this is all extra stuff, and I really feel that a lot of this is just to justify your actions as a DM for those moments when a player gets all, punch me in the face contradictory style. That's the only reason that you need to write down all of these hindrances and stuff like that. It's the sort of the beautiful part about Savage Worlds. I spent about an hour doing this, and then I sort of like had not an epiphany or a light bulb moment, but I'm like, I felt like doing it the way that I built this character was really just a gigantic waste of time by putting in all the hindrances and stuff like that. Like, I wrote in my notes, what is the essence of Agent Smith? He's kicking and punching, doesn't do anything. Hitting him with stuff doesn't do anything. He doesn't have feelings or emotions, but he's easily killable via bullets just like anyone else. And when he dies, he just comes back to the nearest host. So I would play this character as emotionless, relentless. I would describe the damage being done to him as like hard-hitting and painful looking, but ineffective. I would track his wounds simply so that I could know when he's defeated. Like he needs to have that you killed him, Mark, but I would never use those wounds against him like you would as a player, like, never roll negatives against my roll. And when he dies, he just goes to the nearest mook and you start over. Until all nearby mooks are defeated, he just keeps coming back. So you either have two options. You can run away or sort of run away faster, unless you're Neo. And then, right near the end, he when he gets his matrix vision, he pops inside of him and then basically blows him up, is what you assume happens. But you're not Neo, because Neo's the only one. So building this character...
Okay, but did you read Invulnerability? Did you read the description of this?
Did I not put it in here?
Yeah, you listed it, but just by what you're saying here, I'm wondering if you actually read Invulnerability.
What does it say?
How it works.
School me, Eric.
Well, you ignore the wounds. You can be shaken or stunned, but you can't be wounded unless it's by your weakness. So is there a weakness to defeating this guy?
Yeah,
Serial.
Bullet to the head. You could shoot him just like anybody else. He would die that way.
Well, then he's not invulnerable. That's where I'm getting at.
All right, yeah, but you could just, but you just have a little special. It's invulnerable, but you just add a
Then you
little
put
caveat.
weakness. The weakness is a cold shot to the head. Then,
Okay, yes.
Or
There you go.
invulnerable, which does say some Savage Tales feature invulnerable horrors that can only be defeated by discovering their weakness. Well, you can't kill him by punching him or hitting him with things or throwing him into things or doing any kind of physical damage
But wait
to
a
him.
minute,
other than
shut
shooting
up,
him.
because the thing is that Agent Smith isn't even weak against cold shots to the head. He's really only weak against coup de grace to the head.
Yeah, see, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because he can that doesn't even really kill him. He just appears somewhere else.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so but then what you do is you do weakness, coup de grace to the head, and then special ability after he dies regenerates. So, or that would be what's that Edge here? A villain never dies or whatever it is. Give him that.
setting rule. Yeah.
Yeah. Bongus.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that falls into the setting rules type of thing, I think. What about the power disguise self? That would fit for him, right? When he uses a new body and people don't know that it's him at first.
Sure. So here's where I want to go back to the designing threats part. As we've created these villains, but now I want to get into a bit of let me help you make these things easier from my experience. So it does say that what I was reading at the beginning, it says give them any edges or hindrances the GM feels appropriate. I say screw this part. Don't give them edges and don't give them hindrances. It's kind of a waste of time. Just know what their concept is and sort of work from that, because the only reason that I think that you would need edges or hindrances is so that you can justify to your players when they call you on what you're doing, why he is the way that he is, if that makes any sense. It's like last night when I was listening to the Brewery, they were talking about this thing where, anyway, so let's not get into that. But the gist of it is the only reason you need to write this stuff down is because your player's going to be like, well, I have this ring of super defiancers, and they're going to want to challenge your character build, which is the same reason that I say it says they should generally have the prerequisites of any edges for completeness. And I say, don't waste your time. That completionist part of it only would come into question when your players, as you're role playing the game, would ask you about something like, I have this ability that lets me smell. Like this was the event. Here we go. So let me start over. When they were talking about it in the Brewery last night, one of the characters had this ability to smell, but they were snuck up on. And so that player, that character said, but I have this ability to smell. Why didn't I get a chance to smell them? But inside the game, when Pierson explained it, they were inside this sort of magic-resistant area where his smell wouldn't work. And that's what I'm talking about. The players will come at you with, I have this ability, why can't I use it? And that's the only time that edges or hindrances, you would need to write them down to justify why you did something to take away an ability of a player. But here's
Let me tell you this though. That I think it's important only for consistency, and I would put it down solely that I remember. That's the only reason I would.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
the thing
You know about your memory, Gary. You'd forget that guy has frenzy and to make 2 attacks, or you'd forget that he's got combat reflexes and he gets a +2 to recover from shaken. It's a reminder. It's just like all the stats. You could make up all the stats too. You could decide that right now he's got D10 agility, and next round, he's got I don't know, D8 shooting. But we still write the stats down, and edges are part of the stats just as a reminder. It doesn't mean that you can't ad lib once you start playing, but it's a reminder.
Yeah, I don't think it's because I often come up with, like, say, an unimportant NPC on the fly, and I'll just go, screw it, D6 and 3 stats, and give him a couple of skills. I'll do that or whatever, and maybe 1 edge, something like that. But the point is that, like, when you're doing the big villain, I think it's important for consistency to have them statted out. And I'm like, Solomon Kane is my 50 fathoms, right? I bring it up every podcast. The point is during that game, every time they met Kane, he was more and more powerful, and I did something on, I think that what it is that with that, it became something tangible, that I'd added more and more edges. And by the end, he had an arcane background as well. And that was something that they could actually see, as well as something that was an easy point of reference for me to remember. That's why it was important that I had it written down. I do understand your point, Gary, but I just think that, that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. I just find that even if I do write it down, half the time I still don't use half the skills or abilities that I've put down. Like, I sort of get into the role-playing aspect of it, where I know what they have for stats, and I know what he needs to roll to attack, and I'm going to play with the toughness aspect of it and the important parts that are going to help you kill him. But as far as the rest of it goes, I just find that I find that for me anyways is what I should say. I should preface everything I say like that. I don't use them. Like, I wouldn't if arcane skill, I know what you're saying. I wouldn't write down he has arcane background in magic. I would just write down his spells. He's got these spells, if that makes sense, which is why I would do the same thing without writing down edges or hindrances. But this is the last part I wanted to get to on creating characters inside of this is all of the edges and hindrances do is just give him these little fluffs here and there to increase his parry or toughness, or maybe make him attack twice. Well, if you're playing Agent Smith, you see this one scene where he's got Neo pressed up against the wall and he's doing like these super punches to the gut where his arms are flying super fast. And if you can't find something inside the game, that's why I'm saying you just role play that. Like you just start saying something along the lines of his punches fly into your gut at like lightning speed, and then I would roll like 8 punches, kind of a thing, if that makes sense, because there isn't really a skill for that. So that makes it easier for me playing the character like he's meant to be. But then, saying,
but then you could. I know exactly what you're saying, and I did something similar again with Solomon Kane, where he had an unbelievably high parry, and to demonstrate that, all you do is you say it as the flavor. So when people were trying to hit him, instead of giving him an edge or whatever, I think he had edges to bring the parry up. But point is that instead of just saying, oh, he's got an edge, so by the way, you can't hit him, I just said, before you even see it, his arm is up and it's defending your blows, and they were like, oh my god, this guy must be sick, let's run away.
Yeah, and the way I see it, 8 punches or 1 punch in 1 round is the same thing. It's 1 attack. It's still 1 fighting check. It's not. People think when they roll fighting with their sword, they just do 1 hack, and it takes 6 seconds to do that. It's a series of feints, parries, and moving around the battlefield to deliver an attack. So 8 punches, it's just a description of how he fights. That's all.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
That's why.
Yeah, if your Agent Smith guy does like 38 damage, to me that can be a flurry of blows. That's fine.
Yeah, I would set it up as a special ability where he had this, it's a thing he can do. Like if he could cast a spell, he has this ability where he can punch you like 8 times in the time, make 8 fighting attacks in the time it would take you to make one. He only does it one time throughout the movie, so you want to limit that kind of thing because that would be like seriously devastating. But that's what makes him the special boss guy. What I found out too is by the end,
Gary, take the hard way, Gary. Take the hard way.
Just do fan the hammer, but for melee.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's rapid attack. That's
so speaking of
that.
not doing it the hard way, rather than go through the time and effort of looking at all these edges and adding them in, when I went through the bestiary and looked at what they actually have for special abilities for the bestiary section, a lot of what he has is already covered in here, like you were talking about invulnerability and stuff, and hardy is in here and stuff like that. Regeneration, which he doesn't have, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that you could just pull from the bestiary that sort of cover everything that he can already do. So I thought that was interesting. By the time it came around, I went back to the bestiary and looked through the skills and abilities. I could have just ignored all of the edges and just given him something like armor that to increase his toughness and called it and just been done with it, if that makes sense. I just found it.
Just renamed the crocodile.
Well, I could probably done that.
There's many ways to go about this. I mean, I would probably use the hacking skill to have an ability where he can change the environment around him, cutting off players, making it difficult ground for other players. Doors, shutting place down. Change the environment. There's many ways to do that, and like you said, Gary, it's not something that if you know the character, you don't really need to stat everything. You can make it up on the fly as it happens. So
yeah, and as long as you have that trust with your players as a game master, where they know that you're not going to try and screw them, then my system works well. If that makes any sense. But yeah, there is that cool scene where they're in the building initially. I don't know if they're going to see the Oracle. No, they're not. They're doing something else. But all the doors and windows get bricked up because there's that glitch with this cat. And Neo's like, oh, deja vu. And then they all draw their guns like, what's going on kind of a thing. But that's where the reset happened, where the building's walls or doors and stuff were all redone, which was pretty cool. All in all, great movie, man. And I really liked Agent Smith when it was all said and done.
Yeah, I think you've got a weakness for characters with no facial expressions.
Yeah, because you did Keanu Reeves and now Agent Smith. I mean, that film is like synonymous with people that don't even do any acting.
You guys are so brutal on poor Keanu Reeves. Did I tell you he's my brother?
I love Keanu Reeves. I just don't think I think he's in the wrong job, honestly.
All right, what did you do for us, Eric? Tell us about your character so that I could tear you a new one. How's that sound? I'm going to sick Jan on you.
Yes. You know what it is, don't you, boy? Shall I tell you? It's the least I can do. Steel
Eric,
isn't
you all right?
strong, boy. It's stronger. Look around you. There, on the rocks. A beautiful
Are you having
girl.
a stroke?
Come to me, my child. Then insert sound of girl falling off the ledge. That is strength, boy. That is power. What is steel compared to the hand that wields it? Look at the strength in your body, the desire in your heart. I gave you this, such a waste. Contemplate this on the tree of Wu. Crucify him. There, so as you guessed, this was...
are you doing... Sorry. So you're doing... let me guess. Hang on.
Yeah. Thanks for ruining my whole thing, Harrison. Thanks a lot.
That's right. Wait. Let me guess. David Scott.
Just wait until Harrison gets this in the editing bay. He'll put some nice soft music behind that makes you look seriously weird.
Yeah, so this is Thulsa Doom from the Conan the Barbarian movie with Arnold. 1982. This is him at the end of the movie, and not the Thulsa Doom of the stories, because in the Howard stories, he's actually a villain in Call, the Conqueror. He's not even a Conan villain, but in the movie they took him out of that and made him a villain for this. Memorable, played by James Earl Jones. I thought it'd be a cool villain to put in basically any campaign. I mean, sure, it fits the sword and sorcery style better, but it's about a charismatic cult leader. That's what he is, right? Thulsa Doom is the enacting lead antagonist in the movie Conan the Barbarian. Is a Stygian whose power as a strong and renowned wizard places him as the leader of the named snake cult that grows to be more powerful than most aspiring cults of the same sort. So that's what he is. What I did, I did the same thing as Harrison. I went in the bestiary and looked at the monsters in there and see what I could use as a template. I considered it, especially for maybe when he turns into a snake, but I went with the ancient vampire, because that's what they are. They're charmers, seducers. So I used that template, and then I modified it a little bit. Agility D6, nothing really stands out of the ordinary. Smarts D10, obviously, to be able to, think up of all the things he's done, to the logistics behind running a cult and that kind of thing. Spirits D12. I mean, just his stare when he looks at you, you can see he's got force of character, willpower. Strength D8. He's a big dude, and he beheads Conan's mother at the beginning of the movie. Vigor D10, just to make him a bit more durable. Athletics D6. Common knowledge D10. He must know a lot about many things so that he can run his cult. Fighting D10. He's more of a kind of warrior at the beginning of the movie when they raid Conan's village. Intimidation D12, of course, that's his thing. Notice D8. Persuasion D12 too. If you're gonna have a bunch of followers, you need to be able to, BS them into joining your stupid cult that does nothing. Well, you do get to participate in a bunch of orgies, I guess, which is cool. So, but you still need to persuade them. Writing D6, because he writes at the beginning of the show. Shooting D8. Stealth D10. I don't know why I put stealth D10 in there. Maybe that's the leftover from the vampire, but it doesn't hurt to have anything there. Then I went for the edges. Charismatic, level-headed, command and command presence, because he's a leader. Iron will to resist, persuasion or intimidation attempts. Natural leader. And his sidekicks, he gets sidekicked twice for his bodyguards. That you can use the bodyguard from summon ally power as their stats. Their names are Rexar and Thorgrim. Those two big dudes with the big weapons and stuff. And then menacing, strong-willed, and yeah, that's it. At first, because he's a wizard, I picked the arcane background magic. Now, some of you might be thinking he's the priest of a cult. Why isn't it miracle? Well, in sword and sorcery, the gods are silent. They don't grant powers to their followers. The priests and cult leaders that have powers that know magic, it's through sorcery. So it would be arcane background, spell casting, magic, or maybe sorcery from the fantasy companion, but we're just using core now. So instead of doing that, I decided to go with special abilities. Partly because with arcane background magic, you're supposed to say something and do some gestures and stuff like that. There's a somatic component to it. And I tried to watch the movie yesterday, but I didn't find it for free, and I was cheap. I didn't want to buy it, so I went by memory. I don't think he really, speaks a bunch of little gibberish magic thing. It just happens.
Before you continue, Eric, my wife, no, not my wife. Before you continue, Eric, my wife has told me about this wonderful site, right? It's called Pirate Bay. All the films are free on there. And I'm fairly certain it's all legal.
Cool.
You can find any film you want on there.
Thank her. Thank her for me.
Good. Yeah, so if you ever need any other films, just have a look at that. It's like Netflix, but everything's free on there. You can find anything you want. You can find porn. You can find apps like Photoshop. I found that for there and free. This is all a joke, by the way. I'm cutting this. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, special abilities. I started with something I call cult leader. So in the book, under setting rules, you have some called fanatics, where when a walk-hard character is dealt a wound, like there's a follower that jumps in the way, or maybe the villain positions himself so that the villain gets hit, the extra gets hit instead. Well, I made this a special ability for this character because some people think it's like weak sauce, that this power, that this setting rule happens, but to me, that scene in that I just reenacted at the beginning that was interrupted by Harrison is to me, that's perfect. It's like people will just kill themselves for this guy because he's their leader and they believe in him. So I although I don't see it happen, I don't remember seeing it happen in the movie. I would imagine that, like, if they took a shot, like they fire a bow at him, an arrow at him, one of his followers would just jump in the way and take the arrow for him. So I thought it was quite fitting, and I made this a special ability called Cult Leader instead of a setting rule, in case you don't use that setting rule in your setting. Then there's of course the snake form, and there's shape change power that at legendary you can get something of the same size. But, do you remember in the movie how long it takes for him to transform? It takes good half a minute to a minute for him to actually transform into that snake, that giant snake. And the power would just make it happen instantly, basically. So I thought it'd be more fitting to do that. I say the transformation takes 3 rounds to complete, which is even quite fast if you compare it to the movie. So I took another template from the book. I took the snake, the constrictor snake, and then I boosted his size. I gave him size 7, so that automatically gave that snake +7 toughness, and also increased his strength to strength D12 +5. And then that snake's got the constrict ability +2 to athletics and strength rolls made to grapple. So that thing is tough, but it's got +2 to hit because of its size. While the scale now, that's what they changed. You got scale and size. And because of the scale, it's easier to hit. And with 5 parry, you're going to hit him basically every round. He's just that big, and it looked like that snake doesn't move real fast, so a pace of 4. So he's easy to hit, but he's got 14 toughness. I gave him a scale armor of +2 on there. So, that's it for the snake form. And then another special ability that I call the Power of Flesh it's as the puppet power, but he uses spirit to cast it. That's where he can get people to jump off a cliff and die for him. Can get him to do stuff. It's like a bewildering stare that he's got. And finally, I may have forgotten some of the powers that he uses during the movie, but I called it Serpent Arrow. It's basically the poison monstrous ability that you can find in the bestiary chapter, but it's an arrow. He can confer that power to an arrow, and then it's a lethal poison that is delivered when you use that. Initially, I wanted it to be the trapping for the smite power, but then when I decided to go full special abilities instead of an arcane background, that's what I did. There's a poison monstrous ability in there, so why not use it? Because there's no poison power. It would have to be a trapping. I know some settings have it, like Beasts and Barbarians, as a power, poison power, but not for this one. So, all in all, 7 parry, 7 toughness. That's not a guy that you want to throw alone at a party of 4 or 5 adventurers, even if they're novice. That he's not gonna last. So I want to ask you guys, how would you use a villain like this? How would you use Thulsa Doom in an encounter or even a campaign? Because he's got a whole cult behind him. But how would you make him challenging to the party without them having a clear shot at him every sessions? Because you'd want him to be present sometimes, right? To taunt maybe the PCs and that type of thing. What do you think, Harrison?
In all honesty, the thing about this character is that I'm not that familiar with sword and sorcery type stuff. I'm not really that big a fan of Conan. Haven't watched the movie, but I am very familiar with Moorcock.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are.
Elric?
Yeah.
And the writer Moorcock?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, sorry, could you repeat the question? Because I've just been waiting to make that joke.
What about you, Gary?
What about me? Hello? This thing on?
All right. You guys want to wrap?
No.
You guys want to wrap this up?
Great contribution there, Gary.
Eric, you still there?
All right. Let's wrap this up.
My name's Harrison Hunt, and I do what I like. Right now, I ride a mother bike through the mall where I ain't supposed to do that. I'm from the podcast Tabletop Twats, and this is the wrap up, and it's gonna be sick. I'm right now, you can suck my dick, cause I don't give a shit what you think about my shit. So, suck my mother big fucking dick. Yeah! What I'm trying to say is it's the mother wrap up. Just like Mummy used to make.
So, a quick plug to Jaime Pierson, our leader of Nerds International. He's revamped his show. It used to be called the RPG Brewery. Now it is just called the Brewery, and he's going back to his old self, the old programming, right, Gary? Like I heard you talk to him on your show recently. He's going back to arguing with his drunk buddies. Is that what he's doing?
Hell yeah! I'm taking full credit for this, by the way. When he was talking about
scoop.
No, when he was talking about pulling the plug on the RPG Brewery, and his ADD kicked in, I just told him, man, it's time to go back. I missed the gathering of dorks. Like I got to tell you, last night when I was watching the Brewery on Twitch, there, I was importing the cards from Suede, because we got all the cards we were talking about earlier into Tabletop Simulator, so they're all there now. But I was basically just doing some crafting, and I was watching and interacting with them. And I just felt like I was in their garage with them, just hanging out, listening to them talk. Jaime pays such close attention to the chat stream that if you type something in, or if you have a contradictory viewpoint or something along those lines, it sort of gets thrown into the conversation. And the other thing is Jaime is really so stupid that he relies on other people to prop up his position when he's arguing. So that's really what the show is all about. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I remember the Gathering of Dorks. That was fun.
I loved it, man. It was so good. It was such a good idea. I mean, and I'm looking forward to it coming back. It's gonna be awesome. Some ideas work, some don't. And the RPG Brewery, it didn't work out. Thulsa Doom, whoever the that is, that didn't work out. Sorry, Eric. No, I'm really sorry. Please don't get angry at me. Please don't get upset with me. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Can we still be friends? Please don't fire me.
It's not my fault. You have poor taste. That's all.
I do have poor taste. You're absolutely right. I know that. The fans know that. Guys, fans, if I'm not back next week, we all know what happened, all right? I've done a bad job this week.
Nobody knows who you are anyway, thing too. So it's not like you're going to be missed by anybody. You're just another. You're just right. One of the nameless co-hosts.
I couldn't even remember the name of the goddamn game. So, yeah. Well, anyway, if you want to contact us, send some info to the Wild Die email. Okay, we've got an email address. It is thewilddie@gmail.com. We've got Facebook, MeWe, YouTube, all of that stuff. Wild Die Podcast. We're also in the Nerds International group on MeWe. If you want to come and mingle with us, please do, man. We're always on there. We're always on the chat. We'll engage with anyone at least once. At least once, right? I did it once. And we were on Twitter at the Wild Die Podcast. No, it's just at the Wild Die. And of course, if you want to donate to this podcast, then you're a madman. But we've got a Patreon, and that is /the Wild Die. And at this point, I'd like to thank the following patrons.
Sean, Richard, Uncle Jay, Raspberry, Chalmers and Ray, Conrad, Erasmus, Neubert, Craig, Brewery, Corey, Judd, Murder, Hobo, Trey, Aristia, Rob, Tower, Bumbles, Mango, Sam, Smash, Stark, Pure, Mongrel, Stephen, Dragonspawns, Goblins, RPG, Maps, Daryl, Cartier, Frank, Turfler, Jr., Gil, Dash, John, Lewis, Rod, Jens, Schoenheim, John, Peterson, Carl, Keys, Mr. Stag. And lest we forget Remy Bilodeau, the Digital Dungeon Master, Emmanuel Patz, Sid the Squid, Michael Morrison, and the new ones, Landshark, Scott Martin Davis. You people are better than most. And for those that don't donate, you'll end up in the pits. You'll end up in the pits, burning to your deaths. Bye.
Hey, we got some new patrons in there. We got Landshark and Scott Marchant Davis. And those guys have got good names. Landshark, what a good name.
That is a cool name.
That's a strong name.
Marchant's a pretty strong name, too.
Please support us on Patreon. The next goal at $500 will be I'm getting a new co-host.
We're replacing. You're getting an. Is he going to have a name?
No, he's going to be new co-host.
New co-host one.
Yeah.
Listen. I just want to say I've really enjoyed my time at the Wild Die Podcast, and thanks everyone for the support or lack thereof.
I hope you enjoy your time at the GM podcast with Jared and his co-hosts.
Oh, they won't have me. That's it. I'm going to go and wander the streets and find a new residence on a park bench. F*** you guys. This has been hell.
That's
Goodbye,
insane.
everyone.
All right. Well, while Harrison goes off to kill himself, commit suicide, off himself, I just want to say, please support us. Throw us a couple of bucks on Patreon money, because it's winter time in Ohio or wherever it is Eric lives, and he's very, very skinny and doesn't have a lot of excess fat to keep him warm. And I'm afraid that if he doesn't get that new fur coat with your Patreon money, he's going to turn into a popsicle and just be frozen.
I'm fine. And it's Pennsylvania, Gary.
Yeah, whatever.
But thank you for your concern. That's good. Whatever. Yeah, you're in Alberta, right? So yeah, this is Eric saying, "F you, Harrison."
And this is Harrison saying, "F you right back, Eric."
Wow, this is Gary trying to keep it civil. Keep your pants on. Keep it fun. Thanks, everybody. We're out.
The Wild Die Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Die Podcast.